concern and fear. But enforcing immigration law is the responsibility of federal law enforcement agencies, not the Omaha Police Department. At this time, Chief Schmatter is not aware of any immigrations planned in Omaha. Omaha police officers do not, and they will not, stop individuals to check their legal status. However, any person who commits a crime can be subject to the policies of federal agencies. In those cases, the Omaha Police Department must cooperate with our federal partners, but only as outlined in our policies and according to federal law. Now I'll have Chief Schmatter speak a little bit, and then we will both take your questions on this issue.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the mayor for taking the time to start the original press conference and sliding this in. Obviously, it was a very strong concern to some segments of our community, especially our South Omaha community, where there's a lot of talk about potential immigration raids occurring across the country. Where do they line with their immigration status locally with the Omaha Police Department? So I want to take a minute just to explain that to everybody. You can take a look at Omaha and Omaha Police Department. Our policy on immigration enforcement is pretty much right down the middle. You have some cities that choose to be sanctuary cities, meaning they won't work with the federal government at all on any aspect of any aspect dealing with immigration. And then you have some cities that the law enforcement agencies may take an active role and actively go out and search and check those illegal statuses, whether or not they're here appropriately or not. Within the Omaha Police Department, our mission is the protection of everybody that's in this community. And we are looking to further police community relationships as a means to reduce crime in our community. In addition, as chief, if I was to give the mission that all my officers will become agents of the federal government and have a role in enforcing immigration and status in the country, I have just created a bed of unreported victims, a bed of unrecorded crimes. I need crime victims to be able to say, look, I'm a victim of a crime and I'm going to report it to the Omaha Police Department. If you're a witness to a crime, you need to be able to report it to the Omaha Police Department. If you're in fear of your immigration status, that will go unreported. And so I don't want a bed of domestic violence or child abuse or anything of that nature occurring in our city. So the best approach to police this matter from our point of view is the Omaha Police Department maintains our role as police officers in this city. The immigration side of things from the federal authorities, they will be the ones to do immigration enforcement. Now, there will be times where somebody that's dangerous needs to be located. The Omaha Police Department will help in that endeavor. When you get arrested, your crimes are obviously turned over at that point from the jail system to the government, and that could trigger an immigration revocation. But those are the parameters that we're working under within the Omaha Police Department. We find it to be an appropriate blend for our community so they feel comfortable in reporting crimes to us, comfortable in being witnesses to crimes, comfortable in being victims. And it's also a way where we still maintain ties with our federal government, understanding that it is an important issue to them. I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have on that front.
Chief, how long did it take you to want to come out with this message?
So we've come out with this message a few times in the past. I recall in 2017, we came out with this very same message. The mayor and I, the mayor and I got together over the weekend when we started seeing some of the national reports that started to get our community at ease. That's when we started talking, we need to get out with our message. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, we devised a plan to craft the video in which that has been distributed. I trust everybody's seen that at this point. That's when we decided to do the video message. We felt that having it archived on YouTube, having it archived for everybody to see was the best way to go. Mm-hmm. That is a translated into Spanish video as well for those that don't speak English language.
And also, I just want to reemphasize, there's been a lot of talk on national news that deportations are going to start now. And so that's why we thought it was a good time for us to reemphasize the statement that we put out, as Todd said, in 2017, which really explained the position of the Omaha Police Department with federal immigration issues. And so we felt like that we were hearing some fear, some confusion, not really knowing if this was going to affect Omaha or what our Omaha Police Department was expected to do. So we thought it was a good time to come out and reemphasize what we had already said in the past. But again, another thing I wanted to reemphasize too is what Chief Schmatter just said, is we don't want anyone to be afraid if you are a victim of a crime or a witness of a crime. We want you to feel free to call 911 and the Omaha Police Department will help you and will not check your legal status.
Are you working with other local organizations that work with undocumented people all the time?
We do. We do have a working relationship with a lot of community groups. We have a working relationship with the federal government as well. So all of this is ongoing. The nature of our message was because of the impetus of some of the national news as it related to immigration raids. That's what prompted us to reinstill our message, which hasn't changed since we put out that original message in 2017.
Chief, I'm curious about some of the steps your team is taking to make sure that people in our neighborhoods are getting this message and maybe don't watch traditional media.
Right. Obviously, the video message was your start. That's the way to put it out there. We are hoping that the media carries that torch, both in our Spanish language media, but also in the media here in the room. And then, of course, we will continually instill that. It'll be my directive to instill that on in-person meetings that we attend all across the community. And that'll be the way that we disseminate it. But realize we are here to clarify that message every chance we get, because we think it's that important to our community, and especially right now.
Mm-hmm. And we did put the video out yesterday on OPD and all of mine platforms, all of our social media platforms. So we both put out the same video to get as much viewing as we possibly could.
Chief, what will you do if the Department of Justice, ICE, whoever insists that you help with a workplace or other raid?
Yeah, so, I mean, Chris, the federal government, local government, two different silos. So the federal government can't come one day and give a directive to the Omaha Police Chief, to the mayor, and say this is what you're going to do. Look, we have our defined mission. We're not going to alter from that. And that's the approach. So anything else on that would be a hypothetical as to how we possibly could be compelled into helping. We have our primary mission here, and that is to police the city of Omaha and make sure our citizens feel safe. And I'm not willing to create a bed of unreported crime and unreported victims in our community causing further damage. We feel that we have an appropriate blend right down the middle on this subject, and that's where I intend to stay.
That seems to be like what's really driving your message is like you want people to feel comfortable reporting crimes and so that they don't become vulnerable.
I do, and that's the essence of our sworn oath that we give to this community. And anybody who enters into this community, whether you live here, a visitor, whether your immigration status is a yes or a no, you're under the protection of the Omaha Police Department while we're doing our course of business. Anything after that, anything after an arrest, as far as your immigration status gets checked, that's not within our control. We certainly comply with the law on that particular front. But that is my primary message. Citizens in this Omaha, even non-citizens in this Omaha, need to feel comfortable in calling 911 and being a witness and being a victim, quite frankly, if they need to. That's our message. Thank you.
Is the city doing anything else to work with immigrant communities to prepare for possible raids beyond law enforcement, say, for example, schools or other possible assistance if that happens?
Yeah, that channel of communication is very robust right now. Given the fear level, if you will, I'll call it that way. So the channels are open right now. Obviously, it's to our benefit that everybody knows what our position is, but also we are a resource as well. A lot of the school systems, they're not familiar with the laws. It's an opportunity for us to interface and say, this is where we come into play. These are the laws on this front.
And that we will help them in any way that we can, too. I mean, the Omaha Police Department, my office, is always available to get information to people, especially like, say, the school districts, if they have any concerns or any questions.
Are there any active going on to be meeting with them? Are you being proactive about that, or will you be reactive?
Well, proactive, reactive, you name it, we'll initiate it. This is an important matter for this community. And so you should expect to see your leadership proactive like we are here today. Yesterday, you expect us to be reactive as well. Sort of why we did the video. So it's all encompassing, and those efforts are in play.
Have you heard concerns from people in South Omaha at all as it relates to this?
Sure, we've felt the concern of the fear what may happen to them if a loved one isn't here legally. So we've heard that very strongly. That's the impetus behind why we did what we did.
But keep in mind what is happening in some other big cities is they are there looking for deportation for those who are here illegally and have committed crimes. That's what they're looking for.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Chief, any last questions? The chief's going to step out for this next session here. So.
I do just have one more.
Okay.
Thinking back to
What media station are you with?
I'm with KMTV.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Didn't recognize you.
thinking back to 2017 and the effort you made back then, how would you say that effort went?
You know, it's hard to say. One can say that we had to reinstill our message. So somewhere along the line, it didn't all the way penetrate, or it was lost. We just felt it was a good opportunity to reinstill this message for our community, for the community's health and well-being. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I guess a question outside of this topic.
I'm not going to take.
No.
You can reach out to my office on that if you don't mind. Any questions outside of this? Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to City View. With me here today to discuss this matter, I have a lot of people here, and they're going to help me answer questions too after we finish. I'm going to just do a little overview, and then I'm going to invite Fire Chief Kathy Bossman up to say a few words, and then our Planning Director Dave Fanslau will come up and say a few words too. Also with me today, besides Chief Bossman and Dave Fanslau, Planning Director, I have Assistant Chief Scott Fitzpatrick. That's a tongue tire there. Scott Fitzpatrick is here with Omaha Fire Department. Battalion Chief Kobe Werner is here with Omaha Fire. Anna Bezboyazny, Assistant Planning Director for Permits and Inspections. Scott Lane, who is our Chief Housing Inspector. Jennifer Taylor, who is a Deputy City Attorney. And Taylor Hippica, who is an Assistant City Attorney. All here today to answer your questions. So let's start out with just a bit of an overview. There are two separate actions underway right now at City View Apartments. We believe about 181 of the 221 units are occupied. As far as fire department, the fire department became aware of problems with the fire alarm panel in May of 2024, last year. Right now, repair and replacement of the fire alarm panel is underway. This is a system that detects fire and automatically notifies 911 and the Omaha Fire Department. It includes the fire detectors throughout the building, including fire detectors in every individual unit and in the common areas. Final inspection of the fire alarm panel is scheduled this week. If the inspection passes, the violations will be closed. If the inspection fails and any remaining repairs are not made by January 31st of this year, we will issue a notice to vacate for the entire building. So let me repeat that. If the inspection fails and any remaining repairs are not made by January 31st, we will issue a vacate order or a notice for the entire building. This does not mean that the tenants will have to vacate that day. We will give them time to vacate, but we will issue that order that day if those inspections fail. Planning code and violations. The city's code enforcement division operates under a consent decree, which is a federal court order, and this is required. It is not optional. The city cannot have code inspectors enter into individual units without a formal complaint. So that complaint has to be made by the tenant. It has to have their name on it and a way to contact them, and it has to have specific issues that they are complaining about. And those can be made through the mayor's hotline. They can be made by calling the planning department, and they can use the city's app to do that, or the city's email to do that. We cannot file a complaint or take a complaint from a social media post or from a video posted on YouTube. We cannot take that as a formal complaint. So otherwise, a complaint has to come in. There's several ways of doing that, and it has to have the person's name that is doing the complaint, filing the complaint, and it has to have a contact number on it. Let me give you a little background. In April of 2013, MAPOA, which is Metropolitan Omaha Property Owners Association, filed, a second lawsuit alleging that inspectors were not following the required processes. In 2015, a second consent decree was issued, including standard operating procedures, which we strictly must follow. The standard operating procedures include timelines for providing notice of violations and then deadlines for getting the repairs done. Timelines vary depending on the severity of the violation, ranging from 30 to 90 days. And then there could possibly be extensions if the planning department or the inspectors see that they are actively working on remedying these problems. The standard operating procedures, or the SOPs, also creates a range of violations on a scale level from level 1 to level 4, with 1 being the most severe. Most of the city view violations are level 2 violations. There are no level 1 violations. And I will say that there are no structural violations in the building as far as level 1. Plumbing, mechanical, and electrical code violations have a 30-day timeline for repairs. The consent decree also allows the city inspectors to give extensions. I already said that. Today, both elevators in the building are working. So currently, as of today, we have 48 code violations, including the common areas, which are the hallways, stairways, lobby. This amounts to about 20% of the apartments, and it includes violations reported at the end of 2024. In 2025 so far, we have had 34 reported cases, and 4 inspections are now pending. In 2024, 20 cases total. 14 are open, and that includes common areas like hallways and lobbies. Most open complaints involve plumbing, which leads to other damage, and they have also have complaints about unsanitary conditions in the building. In 2023, we had 4 cases, all are closed or repaired. 2022, we had 2 cases, both are closed and repaired. 2021, we had 4 cases, all are closed or repaired. The number of complaints has increased since the private security company that City View had left the property last fall. And I want to stress that currently there is no security in that building. City View passed both of the first and second rental registry inspections in 2021 and in 2022. As of today, 2 units have been vacated at the tenant's request. 2, and we are taking those on an individual basis. Keep in mind, we've figured that there's about 181 apartments that are occupied now. And to vacate the entire property when we have only 20% that have filed complaints just doesn't make sense at this time. So once again, we are telling those tenants in the building that if they do have a complaint, they need to make that complaint with the city to allow our building code inspectors to go in and inspect. I want to stress, there was a video taken, put on YouTube, and we were asked, could this be a complaint for the entire building? And no, it cannot, because that does not follow the consent decree, and we have to follow what is in that decree. Now I'm going to have Chief Bossman come up and give more specifics on the fire panel, and then that will be followed by Dave Fanslau. Okay, Chief?
Good afternoon. I'll provide a little bit of a summary from the fire code perspective on the issues at City View Apartments. Throughout 2024, the Omaha fire inspectors were working with Zadig Management, who is based in Florida, to repair and replace components of their fire alarm system. During the spring of 2024, as the mayor mentioned, an order I'm sorry, let me start that over. During the spring of 2024, the property owners were not responsive to requests for repairs, and as the mayor mentioned, in July, an order to vacate the property was issued. The building was not vacated at that time because the owner entered into a contract with the local fire alarm company to conduct a full inspection and overhaul of the fire alarm system. The sprinkler system has been functioning properly, and a fire watch was established according to the parameters set by our fire inspectors. Zadig Management has also retained a legal representative, and since that time, our communications with the management company have been through their attorney. Progress for repairs and replacement has been slow, as the property owners appealed to the Property Maintenance Appeals Board in August, who granted timeline extensions. The fire alarm company has been on site completing significant repairs to the system. They have spent the last week checking the fire alarm components and detectors in individual apartments. This has taken some time, but the fire alarm system is due for a final inspection this week, with the goal of conducting the inspection tomorrow. Should the fire alarm system pass, the fire code violations at City View Apartments will be considered resolved. And as the mayor mentioned, should that fire alarm inspection fail, it is the recommendation of the Omaha Fire Department that an order to vacate the property be issued on January 31st. That order to vacate would be issued in collaboration with the planning department based on the failure of the management company to resolve life safety fire code violations. Thank you.
All right, now I'll have Dave Fanslau and Anna Bespoyasny will come up, and they're going to go through the building code violations.
Sure. Dave Fanslau, City Planning Director. I think it's important to note and to stress that my department and Omaha Fire Department have been working hand in hand on this site for a number of months now. Anna and her staff, again, work alongside Kathy and her staff. I can't stress it enough that if you look at the case history at City View for the last couple of years, a handful of cases a year resolved, handful of cases resolved, most of them. I can't stress enough that once security pulled out of that building sometime early fall, we think September, October, we started getting complaints and cases started to skyrocket. So, and leads us to where we're at today, right, with that a couple dozen cases or more than that. So Anna's here. She has a lot of information about how we operate, our standard operating procedure, and how we've conducted inspections at that site recently.
I want to make one point. Come on up here, Anna. But we, as Dave said, and Kathy did too, Chief did, that we have been in contact with their attorney. And we have been in contact with the manager, the building manager. We have not been in contact directly with the owner of the property. The owner of the property lives in Miami. So even though the attorney is a representative of the owner, we have not had conversation with the owner. I get a lot of questions, well, why don't you hold the owner responsible for this? And that's exactly what everybody's trying to do. Anna?
Thanks, Mayor. With regards to enforcement, a lot of the numbers that I have are similar to what the mayor just mentioned. As Dave mentioned, our cases were fairly low in 21 through 23. 4 cases in 2021. Half of those were closed with no violations, and 2 were closed because they complied. In 2022, we had 2 cases. Again, they split 50-50. 1 was complied and 1 was closed with no violations. In 2023, we had 4 total cases. 3 of those were closed and 1 was closed with no violations. In 2024, that's when we started to see a higher number of cases come in, or complaints come in. 14 of those are still in violation. 2 of those are closed because they're duplicate complaints. And what happens if we get a duplicate complaint? We just track it on the original complaint that comes in. We take the information for the duplicate complaint and keep it in the record, but we don't have any inspections under that duplicate. Also in 2024, 2 of those cases are closed because they complied, and 2 were closed with no violations. In 2025, obviously, it's only the 21st of January, and already we've got the mayor had previous numbers from earlier this morning. I checked it again at 1:30. Our cases have gone up to 36 total cases as of today. 26 of those are in violation with notices pending. 5 inspections are pending, so we haven't been out there to investigate those just yet. One tenant actually refused to allow us into their unit, so that case will be closed. One was cases closed as a duplicate. 2 are closed with no violations. And then I've got one other that was closed. We also have 2 cases that were vacated. One was a hoarding situation, and the other was basically dependent upon the plumbing issues that we found as violations there. We also have 7 unoccupied units that have been danger closed, and so nobody is allowed to occupy those particular units. As Director Fanslau said, in September of 2024, security was no longer available on site, and so a lot of those cases started pouring in once there was no security on site to keep squatters and other people with ill intent from coming into the building. The rental inspections passed the first year and the second year of inspections in 2021 and 2022. And with regards to the consent decree, there was an original consent decree in 2002. Actually, we were sued in 2002 also by MAPOA, and in 2003, the original consent decree was entered into. Once we got to 2013, we were sued again, allegations of not following the original consent decree, and that was resolved in 2015 with the consent decree that we are now enforcing at this stage of the game. So I guess in my book, it's much preferable to sit here answering questions about how we're following the law rather than being in front of a judge in a courtroom answering why we decided to disregard the law. So I have any questions?
I just think it's important to note those timelines. So since 2013 court and then the consent decree in 2015, my department, this administration, we follow that consent decree to the T. So we respect both sides of it. We respect the tenants, we respect the property owners, and we respect our process that we have to follow in City Hall, and we follow it to a T.
And I was just going to add how important that is, because obviously, from what Anna and Dave both said, we've been to court several times with the Metropolitan Omaha Property Owners Association, and we need to follow what was in that consent decree. And so we cannot send our code inspectors in individual units without a complaint that has been filed. It has to have a name on it, it has to have a contact number, and it has to have specifics about what the issue is before they can go in. They are in the common area, they have looked in the common area. There are a lot of issues with that area, with trash, with human waste, but those have already been written up and as code violations. Keep in mind also, it is private property. So, again, you have to respect the law and can't take our code inspectors and just go barging in there demanding to go in individual units. If there are health and safety issues, that's what would lead us to issue a notice to vacate. If you remember Yale Park, if you remember Legacy, those were health and safety issues, and we did issue notices to vacate. But that is not something that we want to do first off, because, first of all, look at the weather. Second of all, there's probably 180 units. I don't know how many people are in there, and don't know if they would all have a place to go, because although we would come up with some sort of a plan to relocate, it's not the city's responsibility to relocate all of those folks in that building. And so with right now, we have approximately, 30% maybe? 20? Less than
about 20%.
About 20% that have filed complaints. And so, you don't want to issue a notice to vacate for the other 80% that have not filed any sort of complaint. And so we have to handle this very carefully. We have to handle it according to law. I also have two attorneys here today that would be happy to explain the law better than I can if you had more questions. So, here we are, questions. We've got a lot of people to answer.
Why did the security company leave last fall?
Well, I will tell you, the property owner owes them money. I believe it's over $90,000 that they were not paid. So they withdrew, and they have not hired another security company.
Do you know how long they haven't been getting paid for before they left?
I don't. We don't.
I think there's a lawsuit on it, but I don't know what the timing is.
When is the test tomorrow?
Is the test tomorrow, Chief?
We won't know the timing of the test tomorrow until the end of business today. The fire alarm company is still getting into those individual units, so it'll be end of business today before they give us the official time and approval to move forward with the inspection tomorrow.
And can you define what a failure of the test would look like?
Well, I guess, are there specific codes related to that? Do you want to
You
speak
can
to
come
that? Essentially, a failure of the fire alarm system would mean the detectors did not activate and notify occupants in their individual units, or did not notify 911 that the system was activating. Is there anything more than that? Okay.
And there are fire detectors in each individual unit and in the common areas, right? The sprinkler systems have always worked. Okay. So this is just the fire panel itself. But they have been actively working on replacing it, and so that's why we gave them the time to do that.
Do you have any indication, what do you want to say about the owner in Miami? You guys can't get a hold of them?
Well,
you've been doing this for a long time. What does that tell you?
It's very disappointing. Obviously, we want everybody to live in a healthy and safe environment in Omaha, everyone. It's very frustrating that you've got a property manager there, you have an attorney that's been very responsive, but still the property owner is the one that we haven't had real direct contact with, although the lawyer is a representative of the building owner. But to be in Miami, where the owner lives, and have, own a building that is in this shape is more than disappointing, because nobody should have to live in an environment like we are seeing in some of these units, and also in the common area. I drove around there just the other day, and even the exterior, I know we've told to clean up because of the debris, and it's very, very unkept. But when we saw what is in the hallways, that's another issue. And then I know that there are some homeless that are coming into the hallways in the cold weather, and without security, there's no one to tell them to move out. And so it's a big problem. It's an issue. We don't want people living like that. Like I said in the past, we have issued notices to vacate, but it's a big deal when you have hundreds of people that you're telling to leave where they live. OHA has about 37 units that have vouchers in that building, and OHA has sent their inspectors out, but they are compiling their report, so we can't report yet on what they found when they were inspected.
If the system does fail tomorrow, what resources does the city have to help all of those tenants that are going to have to move out on the 31st find adequate housing?
Well, they wouldn't be moved out on the 31st, first of all. We would issue a notice to vacate on the 31st, and we would give them an amount of time to do that, to get out of that building. But like I said, if we were going to do that, then the city has no obligation to relocate those folks. But we would help come up with a plan to do that. We just have not done it yet, because we are hoping that the inspection will pass this week.
Is there any recourse the city can create to somehow get into direct contact with the property owner? I don't know.
Jennifer, do you want to, Jennifer's our attorney. I think we have tried. Do you have any comment to make? The thing of it is if these code violations are not remedied, then the next step is a citation and take them to court. But you have to cite the property owner. You don't cite the attorney. And so that's where this runs in. This is a difficult situation.
It is, but it's not unusual to have a property owner who doesn't necessarily live locally. The property owner has been in compliance. There is a property manager on site that we have worked with. The local attorney has been an agent for the property owner. We have worked with them. if we continue to have difficulty getting things complied with or getting code violations remedied, then we will continue to work with the attorney and the owner to remedy those and take whatever legal action we can. But at the present moment in time, the owner is being compliant through his attorney.
Mayor, you mentioned that YouTube video that I think a lot of us saw that showed some really awful things inside of that building. With that in mind, would you feel comfortable calling this property owner a slumlord?
Oh, terminology like that, I don't know if I would use that terminology, but if the definition of a slumlord is to own property and let it look like this looks like, yeah, I would call him a slumlord. And that's, it's just to let a building that you own look like this and allow people to live in there and you're collecting money from those people, I think is just shameful. So I hate to, like I said, we are mostly concerned with health and safety issues. We want people, everybody in Omaha, no matter if it's rental property or single family or whatever, to live in a good, clean environment. I'm not aware of even how many children are in that building, but I'm certain there are. But these conditions that we've seen in the common areas are just deplorable. And without security in the building, and obviously the property manager knows that there's no security, and so does the attorney. And they have not made any effort to bring any other security in the building, which they sorely need.
If somebody wants to make a complaint, how they go about doing it?
There are several ways, like I said, that they can call my hotline, which is 402-444-5555. They can call the city planning department, which I wrote down the number and I don't remember it. It's 402-444-5371. Or they can they could go online and do it with City of Omaha.
Enforce Omaha at cityofomaha.org.
Enforce Omaha at cityofomaha.org. So there's basically 3 ways to do it. But once again, a video posted on YouTube and say, use this as a complaint, that's not what the SOP and the consent decree says. So we have to follow that. We can't just use a video. Other questions? Got a lot of people here to answer your questions.
I guess one final one for me, and maybe this is a full course again, but let's say the city does have to issue a notice of vacate. I guess what's the timeline, and let's see what it is. And maybe we're asking this before, but what would happen after that? I guess
It would be a reasonable amount of time. What did we do in Yale Park? Do you remember?
Yale Park was more rapid because, like the mayor said, we're concerned first and foremost about the life safety aspect of buildings, and Yale Park was unlivable, so we vacated that very quickly. Most of the violations over at City View don't rise to that life safety issue. They're nuisances. It's not a great place to live in those units that have those violations. So I imagine we'd give them more time. So if it's the 31st, I'm going to look over my shoulder, maybe a week or two to formulate a plan. We'll do it weekend, like the mayor said. We don't have any responsibility to rehouse people, but we surely want to be partners in the people who will. And so I would imagine, I'm guessing, a week or two, if it gets to that point. But again, each individual, we don't have complaints on all the units. None of the complaints that the planning department has right now are life safety issues. It's more plumbing, drywall, open areas, stuff like that. So again, they're not life safety issues at this point. So we're going to try to work with them as much as we can. Because like we said, there's like 20% of the units that are in violation or we have complaints on. There's 80% that we don't. And so to remove 80% of the occupants for 20% of the problems doesn't seem reasonable right now.
If you recall Yale Park, for example, that we had to get those people out of there quickly. It was in the summer, so we didn't have to worry about the cold weather. But it was a massive effort. I remember we opened up a lot of our community centers. We got cots in there for them to have temporary shelter. We had to work on getting the kids to school, getting buses wherever they were at temporarily to get to their school. I mean, it's a massive effort to try to vacate an entire multifamily apartment. Legacy was more of a fire issue, correct?
Correct.
And when we vacated Legacy. So there's been 2 that we've had experience with, but we certainly with this issue are not happy with the way it looks, are not happy with the reports that are coming in, are not happy that the building owner is not taking the responsibility. But we want to work with them as much as we can to remedy these problems so that the rest of the people can continue living there. It needs to be cleaned up, though.
Do you want this meeting with all of these people, I guess, to be a symbol to other building owners or landlords that you need to take care of your buildings and you need to take care of your tenants?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we expect. That's why we have the departments in the planning department that we have, and that's why fire is so important in these multifamily buildings, too. So we want them to keep them in good shape. We want it to be safe for the tenants that live in there, and we want the tenants to know what they can do if they feel like that there are code violations that are not being taken care of by the building manager or the owner. And they have to file a complaint with the city, and we want people to know that. And then we could come in and inspect their individual units. Any other questions? Well, you're all easy today. Okay. Calling once, calling twice. All right, thanks a lot. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.